welcome to the Dream is Real podcast. This is the place if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in New York real estate. Before we get started, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, turn on those notifications. Don't want you to miss a beat as we continue to put out great content. And today I am with Lou Soriano of Navigator Financial Strategies. How's it going, Lou?
It's going very well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Glad you are here. So obviously, if you're going to make any inroads in real estate, finances are a big part of that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and that's what you do. You help folks with their finances. And let's learn a little bit about you here at the outset.
Sure. So I'm a certified financial planner, CFP. I'm also an accountant with the Enrolled Agent designation, which is a designation issued by the IRS. So I have kind of two businesses in one being financial planning, the other being accounting. And as you mentioned, I work with all types of people in regards to both their investments and taxes and real estate as well.
Actually, you have a real estate background to some degree.
I would say that with air quotes, as they say, right? So real estate background is when I was looking for a home myself, information wasn't as readily available as it is now in 2025. 1995, which was the time I was looking for a home, you had to be a realtor to have access to certain information like the MLS system and things like that.
It's amazing what you can pull on your own.
Oh my God.
I mean, you
nowadays,
need a realtor, I'm going to say that, but
correct.
But
there was no Zillow, there was no anything like that. So long story short, I wanted to learn about the process of buying a home in a very real way. So I took the realtor exam. I became a licensed real estate agent.
Let me get this straight. You want to buy a home and you want to learn a little bit about real estate. So you go ahead and take the full exam and you go for it.
This is my personality.
I was going to say it.
And it's the same is true with I wanted to learn about investing, so I got licensed. I wanted to learn about insurance. I got licensed. Accounting, I got licensed. So this is kind of a habit I've had throughout my life.
I want to see what happens if you want to learn more about Jupiter, if you're going to go.
That's not an interest of mine, but things under the financial planning umbrella or things that had to do with investing in any way and taxation was something I was always interested in. And so that's why I got licensed as a realtor at that time.
Was there something early on that sparked your interest in that area?
Yes. Again, at that time, buying a home was much different than it is now. I was going out with realtors who were great, but back then they put the client in the car with you, drove you around to see 10 properties in a day. I would know instantaneously whether or not I was interested in the home they were taking us to. And they said, well, we have to go in and see it. The homeowner is there waiting for you. Things were done much differently 30 years ago.
Yeah, and if you get 3 in a row,
it gets so I said, man, if only I could just kind of have information about the home I'm looking for. I could pull this on my own. The only way to do that was to be a realtor. So when I took the test and passed, I went to a Century 21 office in Hop Hog, New York. And I told them, listen, I already have a job, a career. I'm just looking for a home for myself. The broker owner at the time, probably a week after signing on with them, said, hey, we have a new listing. There's a broker open house. I think it'll be perfect for you. And that's the house I bought. So the only house I sold is the house I live in today, is a joke I say. So
that's amazing.
Then I was out of there. What you guys do is very difficult.
So how did you gravitate? Well, you were already established in a career.
I was in a different career at that time.
Oh, okay.
I was a biomedical engineer. I was doing the work I do now on a part-time basis.
So you weren't in finance?
I was licensed, but I was just starting my business. My business was friends and family members at the time. And I could probably count on 2 hands how many they were and still have a couple of fingers left over, if you know what I mean. So I was just starting to transition from my technical career to a financial planning career or financial services career.
Did anything about the process of learning real estate for the time that you were there transition over to your finance career?
Yes. Yeah. So the first thing so when I say I've worked with the real estate community for, it's hard to believe, it's almost 30 years now. And I could tell you how I got more actively involved with them over the last 5. I realized very quickly that realtors did not have retirement plans. They didn't plan for taxes. They weren't paying quarterly. So you're an independent contractor. You don't have some of the things that rank and file employees would have.
Right. And that's a transition that a lot of people they take for granted a little bit. Actually,
Correct.
on the real estate exam, they spend a good bit of time
do they now?
explaining what it means to be a 1099 employee.
That's good.
That's something that I've always been accustomed to. So I found it interesting going through the testing process. But sure, because if you're coming over from a W-2 scenario into 1099, I'm sure you deal with this on a daily basis. There's a lot to consider.
Yeah, there is. And what I say with the new realtors, I work with realtors who are fairly new. I also work with those who've been in the business for a long time and do very well. And they both have unique circumstances, right? So the new realtors are like, hey, this is a great career. They love it. It's a fun career, by the way. I love working with the realtors. And what they realize is they make their money, right, through commissions. And then at the end of the year, when they file their taxes, they're surprised by how much they may or may not owe, depending on how much they made. And they didn't plan for that. So they didn't plan for taxes. So then you could get down a very slippery slope if you get on installment agreements to pay your taxes back. Before you know it, another year is here.
Right.
And you're down that slippery slope again if you didn't plan. Again, it's a common theme, unfortunately, for some. And they decide that it's not a career choice for them because they think, oh, I can't make any money doing it. You can, you just have to plan for taxes, for example, in this case. So that's why I try to work with them on. And then the other difficult part of what you guys do is, you might have a deal today, a listing, but you don't get paid till another 2 or 3 months from now. So by the time that check comes in, you may have already accumulated some. And
there's expenses from here to there, for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. So for the individual looking to get into real estate, what's the best piece of advice that you could give them right now?
Yeah, escrow, for lack of a better term. That's not a tax term, but that's a real estate term. Have a separate account for taxes. So every time you get your commission check, put something, even if it's just 10 or 15%.
I was going to say.
Which is not enough, by the way, but it's at least something so that when you do pay your taxes either on a quarterly or annual basis, you have something there to, pay that bill.
Right. So it's not such a shock at the end of the
Correct.
year.
Yeah. Because
let's be clear, you're not the bad guy at the end.
No,
of the year,
I'm the messenger.
Fair enough.
And I try to help them plan in advance for this so that we could avoid a big tax bill for starters. But when you start off as a realtor or any independent contractor, not only do you pay federal tax and state tax, but you pay self-employment tax, which is an additional 15%, 15.3% to be exact. And that's to pay your Social Security and your Medicare.
Right. So you hit on something that I think we should dig into here a little bit.
Okay.
Let's say somebody comes to you and I've got everything for the year and figure out what I owe, right? Mm-hmm. Not quite as ideal as if they were to engage with you from a financial planning perspective, because you can, again, whenever it is, if it were at the end of the year when you're listening to this, find someone that can really lean in on both sides, right? But if if somebody's thinking about getting into real estate or new or it's coming into a new year, talking with you early can help them to prepare all year long.
Correct. I always say the sooner you start planning, the better, but it's never a bad time to plan. So even if it's now at the end of the year, we're filming this now, it's mid-October, the end of the year is quickly approaching. Let's say you paid no taxes throughout the year. Maybe you had a great year. Maybe you had an average year. It doesn't matter. You still owe tax at the end of the year. And if you're not planning for that now, it's going to be a surprise, no matter what that amount is in April, right? Let's say, because most realtors like to file April 15th. That's when they want to submit. And then if they're not prepared to pay, they want to file an extension. And that due date then is 6 months later, October 15th, which was yesterday. And even then, they're not planning. Again, it's a tough career, not only being a realtor, but an independent contractor or a self-employed individual. You got to plan for these things. When you're employed somewhere else, they take care of that for you, right? They pay your federal tax, your state tax, your Medicare.
You pay no matter what.
But you're still paying.
But out of sight, out of mind a little bit.
Correct. Right. You have to do this on your own. So,
hey guys, do you want to be on the Dream is Real podcast? Do you have a story to tell? If you are a real estate attorney, a mortgage lender, or anybody within the home industry field, scan the QR code, fill out the application, and hit us up. We'll be in touch with you shortly. Hope to see you soon.
Have there been any changes over the past few years or in recent times around the ability to take certain deductions for business?
Yes, there have been. And there are several. Wow, that's a good question. The first thing I would say is when you're first starting out, or even if you've been in any business, I don't want to just limit it to realtors, although that's what we're talking about today. You're as a sole proprietor, which means all of your net income is subjected to federal, state, and the self-employment tax I'm describing. As you go on in your career, any independent contractor could choose to structure their business a little differently, and by that I mean as an S corporation, and that presents an opportunity to save on this self-employment tax that I'm describing, where you could pay yourself a salary, and only that salary is subjected to that. The rest is not. So you just pay federal and state tax on the profit of the business, not self-employment tax. You only pay self-employment tax on the W-2 portion that you pay yourself. So in essence, you become the business and the employer and employee under an S corporation structure, whereas a sole proprietor, you're just a
basically
self-employed. Everything is subjected to the self-employment tax.
Everything that comes in, and then it's that minus whatever deductions that you're able to take, right?
And as far as deductions, just to circle back to your question, the first thing, like I said, have a separate bank account. You can keep track of your expenses. Number one, much easier that way when you have a separate account for your business. So every time you pay your LIBOR dues, client gifts, your cell phone, things like that, car payments, it can be taken out of your separate bank account for your business. So that's the bookkeeping part. The second part is, just keeping track of all your expenses. If you look at a Schedule C or any business form, it'll literally show you what your deductions are, or what deductions you can take, I should say.
You also hit on something here. We're talking about real estate agents, but really everything that we're talking about here is relevant to independent contractors across the board. Not even independent contractors, business owners.
Any business owner whatsoever, yeah. And whether you're structured as sole proprietor, LLC, S Corp, doesn't matter. There's benefits to planning for all business owners.
Now, when you step in and talk with a business owner about retirement, what are some of the things that you want to drive home as quickly as possible in that conversation?
Yeah. So first off, as I mentioned earlier, as a business owner, these are things that are not set up for you when you set up your business, whether you're a small business owner like a realtor who's just starting out, or
it's
someone
not like
who's
you're sitting
established.
in HR, I'll check off this box, we'll do that one.
You're signing up for a 401k. No, you have to establish
happening.
A plan. There are many different plans, too long to get into here, for business owners, depending on the business size and alike. And I think it's advantageous to set something like that up early on, whether you contribute to the plan or not, because at the end of the year, you could leverage that contribution as a tax deduction. And some businesses have very low overhead, like realtors, for example. So having a plan in place, and if you contribute to that plan, that would help you on your taxes. And more importantly, it'll help you long-term towards retirement. I find it hard to believe I've been in this business 30 years. 30 years went by pretty quickly.
It goes by fast.
But thank God I always planned early on, and that has literally paid dividends over the years. So I encourage every business owner to look at their tax situation and see if it would benefit them to have a retirement plan through their business. The other benefit of having a plan through the business is you could have higher contribution levels than you can if you did so on your own, like an individual IRA or a Roth IRA outside of a business.
Right. What are some misconceptions that you see coming in? Somebody sits across from you and they're getting started. What maybe I don't want to say bad. I don't want to say incorrect.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we use misconceptions. That was a good word to
Yeah,
start.
misconceptions are great. So I do a lot of myth busting on my social media accounts where if you follow any financial advice or tax advice on social media, it's always, just buy this and write it off on your taxes, or do this and,
Borrow this.
The IRS basically pays for it. That's not how it works. So that's a big misconception. So when I speak with people, they say, hey, for example, I bought a car this year, or I bought a computer for my business. Can I write it off? And I always say, yes, you can. But they think if they spent, let's say, $2,000 on a laptop, that they get $2,000 off their tax bill. That's not how it works. So $2,000 comes off of the income you earned. So you're taxed on less income, and in turn, it lowers your tax bill.
Right. So if you have, it's X percentage of
it's
the
a percentage.
Income. Yeah.
So if you're in a 20%, let's say, effective tax rate, and you bought a $2,000 computer, you're going to save $400 on your tax bill, not $2,000.
Fair enough.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. It makes perfect sense.
Yep.
And so, I mean, what's one piece of financial advice that you wish everyone knew?
Wow, that's a good one. That the earlier you start, and I think people do know this, but they don't implement it. The earlier you start, the better. Planning is something, whether you realize it or not, like retirement planning we're talking about, it's not a matter of how much you put in, just the fact that you're putting something in, and it's like a snowball going downhill. That's the cheat code, literally, for financial planning anyway, is starting early. And tax-wise, the cheat code is having a separate business account. I know I'm repeating this.
No, but you got to hit it home.
Yeah, it's so easy to do, first of all. And second of all, if you are disciplined and just use that one account to pay all your expenses out of, you're kind of already doing some bookkeeping there too.
Right.
So it makes it easy to know what you actually spent money on in your business. You know what your expenses are.
Yeah, so you're not going through a bunch of line items and saying, is this business, is
correct?
It not? Yeah. Because mistakes can be made in that case. And honestly, you probably miss some things that you could write off.
You will miss things. I could guarantee it. And I'll just go back a little bit. During the pandemic, 2020, 2021, realtors were hit hard, right? Everybody was, but realtors couldn't show houses and things like that. So they had the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. Literally, I don't know how many in number, but many realtors lost out on capitalizing on that program because they did not have it. That was literally a requirement. You had to have either run payroll if you were an S corporation, and if you were an independent contractor or a sole proprietor, you had to have a separate bank account because they wanted to see what your income was. But if it was lumped in with your regular account and your other income and expenses, it was impossible to do so, and you didn't qualify. So hopefully we don't ever have another pandemic like that or a program like that. But yeah, that was another example of how people missed out on things.
So would you say that because you have clients that you work with directly, and maybe you can give us a sense of how you continue and engage in those relationships, from a long-term perspective, I would imagine that those who engage with somebody like yourself would have been more prepared to understand those programs and probably be in line to be approved.
Yes, absolutely. And I usually tell people too, just don't consult with your accountant, whoever he or she may be, during tax season. You should talk with your accountant all year round because there are opportunities that come up throughout the year. There are tax law changes that take place throughout the year that you could leverage if you are having, continual meetings or consults or even simple phone calls on a quarterly basis. I think that's very wise to do.
And you also want to make sure that the professional that you're working with is proactive in understanding all the options as well.
Absolutely.
And not just kind of moving paperwork from one bin to the next.
Correct. I try to be proactive with my clients too in sharing information. I make short videos on Instagram primarily.
Is that the platform that you use?
Yeah, that's primarily because I find a lot of realtors are on there as well, and that's a big part of my business. So So, for example, there was a new tax law change that just took place a few months ago, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, not easy to say, but OBBBA. And I was making videos about that, like, hey, here's what's changing, here's what's going on. So I was making short videos about that. So I try to be proactive and get that information out there that way.
Any other platforms that you use for communication, or even tools that specific financial tools that you can point people to for further education?
Yes. So for me, it's Instagram primarily, Facebook as well, but primarily Instagram. And as far as financial tools, I mean, there are so many out there. It's very hard to keep track of, Jason. It's incredible, even on the professional side. But I think if you just do a couple of simple things like, planning for retirement early on, planning for taxes early on, having a separate bank account, once you start doing some of these things, it really is not that difficult to do. And then as your business grows, you could leverage some other resources for that, because just like anything else, just set up the simple stuff, have good fundamentals at first, and then you could evolve from there.
You strike me as somebody who loves what they do, and
I do.
is passionate about getting it done and getting it done right. Give us a sense of what drives that.
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. I guess because I did not grow up with, I'm Puerto Rican, Hispanic. I share this with you only because in our family, it was never something that was a priority. Hardworking family for sure, but it always seemed like we, as a culture, just did enough to get by. And I wanted more for that in my life, and I wanted to share that with people like me. So that was my main motivating factor. I have an uncle also who was an accountant. He was instrumental in getting me involved in this, and he was very different from most people I knew. And he was sort of like a mentor in that respect. So that's what motivated me to do that.
Oh, that's awesome. So you got to see your uncle pave the way and maybe take a little bit of a different track than the rest of the family.
Yeah, he was like, the smartest guy in the family, So I said, I want to be that guy.
So now you're the smartest guy.
I don't know about that, but I definitely followed his footsteps.
I don't want to get you in trouble with anybody outside of
And
you.
you know what? I'm very fortunate. My family is so diverse, and I have so many wonderful family members who are doing wonderful things. I have a cousin who is an attorney. I have another cousin who's a principal in a school in Queens. Like, we've been very blessed and fortunate. But as a whole, I thankfully, our family has evolved over time too, right? In doing some of these great things. But I just think it's very important to have financial literacy, no matter what your career path is, because it just is something that is not taught in school. And most times we learn these things the hard way.
30 years in the industry. I'm sure you've helped a lot of people achieve success, build what we're talking about. Underlying is building a legacy that continues. Do you have any? Do you have maybe one or two that's like a favorite of yours?
That's a good one. So, one or two tips or
No. I'm talking about what you would say is a success story. You put your head on the pillow at night and you say, here's somebody who I helped, who was here, who's now here.
Yeah.
And you sleep a little more sound knowing that they are more financially sound.
Yeah. So that a couple of recent cases that came up, unfortunately, were due to deaths in the family. A spouse lost.
A lot happens financially in that situation.
Her husband, maybe the husband was the primary person taking care of the financial matters in the household, and the other spouse. And it could be either way, by the way. But in this one case, it was the husband who was doing that. And the wife at this point was, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to handle this. I don't know how to manage money. And now she's doing so well off, has a better handle on it, has a thorough understanding, and is enjoying some of the money too that we've managed together. So she's doing things now that she didn't think she would be doing, both in managing her money and enjoying it. So that makes me happy. And also with younger families who are saving towards retirement now, and 5-10 years later, they see that it's accumulated to something more than they thought it would be, even though they're not of retirement age yet, but they could see they are on the path to, successfully retiring one day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, those make me happy.
If somebody wanted to work with you, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
You could call my office, 631-236-5842, and my office is in Smithtown.
Awesome. Well, Lou, thank you very much. Glad that you joined us today. And thank you also for tuning into the Dream is Real podcast. Remember, like, share, subscribe. Don't miss an episode. And if you want to connect with us, you can find us on Instagram at Dream Select Realty. Same with TikTok. Or you're active on Instagram. I'm going to give you another opportunity.
I am. I forgot
that.
to mention, you can follow me on Instagram as well, at Lou Soriano 1.
Awesome. And you can find us also on X at Dream Select Homes. If you want to be part of this program, go send an email to hometeam@dreamselectrealty.com. We'll see you next time. Don't forget, the dream is real.